Resident Evil 2 Remake has finally been announced, and I'm very excited to talk about it, so without any further delays, let's get right into it. Officially, Resident Evil 2 Remake is an over-the-shoulder style of Resident Evil game, which I'm actually very happy about because I think that that was probably the best compromise as far as what kind of Resident Evil game we could have gotten. I was really hoping for a game, at least as far as compromises were concerned, that was similar in the sense of being a over-the-shoulder style game, but still remaining a survival horror game, and I thought the best compromise would have been a Revelation style of gameplay, which clearly that's what we're getting, so I'm very happy to see that. I'm happy to see that they're not trying to follow the first-person horror trend like Resident Evil 7 did, so in my opinion this is perfect. Now obviously there are going to be people that are going to complain and that are going to boycott this game because it's not exactly like the original, but based off of the gameplay that I've seen, it's pretty damn close despite not being that original camera perspective for the gameplay. Now something cool to note is that the developers did actually confirm that the gameplay was going to be a mix of Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 7, and I don't particularly mind that. I think that that's actually a good thing to take a few good aspects of a game that even I don't particularly like, although that's of course my own personal bias, but I do think that it's always a good thing to take good aspects of any kind of game and try to blend it into a game and make it even better. So it's really cool to see that Resident Evil 4 mechanics and Resident Evil 7 mechanics are just kind of subtly in there. I think they're very subtle in what they're doing with that, because I do think that there's also another aspect that they didn't particularly mention, in that it does feel like a game that is going to play similarly to the original Resident Evil remake, and I feel like it's going to be a combination of those three games: Resident Evil Remake, Resident Evil 4, and Resident Evil 7, and I don't think that's a bad thing. So I can't wait to see more on what you can do in that game and some of the different mechanics and how that game feels once both characters are playable and once they show off more of the enemies, because so far we've only seen the default zombies, of course. Now something else that I'm very interested to see is the new character designs for Ada and Hunk. We see Ada in the shadows in the trailer at least, and Hunk is actually only heard in the trailer and not seen. So I'm very interested to see how they've been changed and how they actually look. Hunk personally is one of my favorite characters in the Resident Evil series, so I'd like to see how they've decked him out with all of his tactical gear, and I'm hoping that they didn't stray too far from his original design, but also made it unique enough to where it feels different and new compared to other designs that he's had throughout the series. Also, speaking of Hunk, since this was a rumor originally that Fourth Survivor, Tofu Mode, and the Alligator Sewer Boss was going to be cut, the developers actually confirmed that the game will have all of its original content as well as the alligator boss. In fact, the director for the game even said that he actually really liked that boss and felt as though that fans would really miss that boss, and it was a great piece of history for Resident Evil 2, so they were very inclined to keep it in. So it's pretty interesting to know, and I'm very excited to see how Fourth Survivor is going to play this time around, because it might actually be altered. It might feel more like a separate story rather than a get from point A to point B sort of thing. So we'll have to wait and see, but I'm very, very interested to see how some of these old game modes are gonna be changed and altered and how they will play in this remake. Now, another thing that I'm actually very interested to know is whether or not we'll be seeing a Resident Evil 3 remake, as well as anything related to the Outbreak games. Obviously, the Outbreak games might either get an HD collection or they might be completely retconned from the series altogether, but I do think it would be very nice to see like a File 3 or just File 1 and File 2 remakes that are more in line with this particular remake. I also think that without a Resident Evil 3 remake, Resident Evil 3 would kind of feel weird if you just jumped from the Resident Evil 2 remake to the original Resident Evil 3 because of the layout design and things of that nature. So I'm very interested to know how things are going to turn out for this series, especially in this part of the timeline. So things are really sounding good for this Resident Evil 2 remake, and I'm actually pretty happy to hear about it, and I can't wait to learn more more, especially like about the different enemy types. I'm hoping that they start bringing in more information, especially like if there's going to be crimson heads or like any new types of enemies that weren't in the original, because I think that would be pretty cool to see. Aside from that, something that I'd like to close off on is actually the pre-order DLC, because I do think that there is something interesting about that pre-order DLC, but it's more or less a minor thing. Maybe you'll agree, maybe you'll disagree, but I do want to talk about it briefly before ending this video. Now, what I find very interesting is that you will have the option, if you pre-order the deluxe edition, you will have the option to switch to the original soundtrack. So if you don't like the new remixed soundtrack, you can go back to the old one if you prefer that one. So that's pretty nice for anybody that wants that sort of thing. But what's even more interesting is the Samurai Edge pre-orders. The 3 weapons that you can get if you get the deluxe edition, you can still get 2 of those weapons if you pre-order the standard edition. You will get Chris's Samurai Edge, Jill's Samurai Edge, and also Wesker's Samurai Edge. Now, what's interesting about this is that they don't particularly specify which versions of these Samurai Edge models you'll get. Now, obviously, I don't think that Chris's model has ever been in a game before, but Jill's and Wesker's have. And from my knowledge at least, Jill's has been modified in Resident Evil Revelations 1, and Wesker's was modified in Resident Evil 7. So they're not necessarily specifying if those are going to be the Revelations and Resident Evil 7 models, or if those will be the traditional models seen in previous games like Resident Evil 3 and Resident Evil Remake. What's going to be interesting is if those models will stay true to the particular timeline, or if they're just going to be like, fuck it, you can just take this random version that we're just going to throw out there. It'll also be interesting to see how they end up making Chris's Samurai Edge model, because again, I don't think they've ever had it in a game before, and if they have, please feel free to correct me, but it will be nice to see if they have any different like benefits compared to the default handguns that both Leon and Claire will have, and if they'll be even worth using, because sometimes DLC weapons can suck major ass, and sometimes they can be very cool to use and very fun to use, so it'll just be kind of a wait and see ordeal in my opinion. But it is something to keep in mind that if they are trying to go for accuracy, then it would be very nice to see them accurately recreate the Samurai Edge models for each of those characters. Now with that, I'd like to close off the video. For any particular thoughts that I did not mention in this video, I actually want to save that for any potential podcast that I might be a part of with the IAS. So I might be talking about more of Resident Evil 2 Remake, or I might be talking about the Resident Evil engine over on that podcast. I will leave a link down in the description below if you want to check out that podcast channel. Now that said, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you want, you can feel free to leave a like, comment, and potentially even subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one.